Thanks so much for being with us here on Atlanta News First Plus. I'm Joy Limnacker, and just want to share with you some of the top stories that we are following at this hour. And we're also going to discuss them. We do have a special guest joining us for analysis. But first of all, I want to let you know that we're on top of some breaking news right now of a South Fulton police officer being shot. And we're working right now to get some new information. We have a crew on the scene there. And if you see on our homepage at atlantanewsfirst.com, this is one of our top stories. It is our top story that we're following. But it apparently happened at the David L. Higgins firing range in the city of South Fulton. Right now, our details are very limited, not clear how it happened, the extent of the injuries, who the officer is who was injured, but like I said, we do have a crew on the scene working to get some new information about that. But another major story that we are also following as well involves former Clayton County Sheriff Victor Hill. Of course, we've been following his case very closely here on Atlanta News First, Atlanta News First Plus. Well, a federal judge has denied Victor Hill's appeal for freedom. Remember, he was convicted of violating the civil rights of 6 detainees. And now he's set to begin an 18-month prison sentence next week in Arkansas, and he actually has to report to prison by Monday. But his attorneys filed a motion for him to get out on bond, and that was denied. So he will be reporting to prison. And I want to move on to another major story that we've been following here in the Atlanta metro area. There's a $50,000 reward being offered for a murder suspect right now. This is a teenager who's wanted for murder in Philadelphia. He's believed to be hiding out somewhere here in metro Atlanta. So as you can see, there's this huge reward out for his location, for anyone who can help locate him. U.S. Marshal Services offering this $50,000 reward for the arrest of this 17-year-old. His name is Darren Bernie Thorne. And authorities say that Bernie Thorne and 4 others allegedly ambushed a 14-year-old outside of high school in Philadelphia last year. U.S. Marshals believe that Bernie Thorne is now somewhere in Atlanta. And of course, they're very concerned, that it's a public safety hazard, and they want you to keep an eye out and maybe help track him down if you can do that. But I want to, invite in a special guest joining us at this hour to help break down all of these stories that we're following. We have Mr. Charles Yarbaugh, who is a longtime law enforcement officer, retired now, senior sergeant, who's now retired. Thank you so much, Mr. Yarbaugh, for joining us live
thank you.
here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you bring such a wealth of knowledge. I first want to ask you about this story that we've been following out of South Fulton, because as we said, there was a police officer who was shot at the David L. Higgins fire range in the city of South Fulton, working to figure out how that happened. What is your response to that, and what insight can you share with us based on all your years in law enforcement?
Well, I think one of the most important things, and I hope that the officer is okay, but training is very, very important, and safety of the utmost importance. And one of the things that involves in regards to this type of training is that all safety precautions must be taken in place. And one of the things that unfortunately can happen is people unfortunately don't take those precautions the way that they should, step by step, ensuring that make sure that everyone is safe and there aren't any situations where an officer will be in the line of fire. And not knowing everything that's involved currently at this time, we just hope and pray that the officer is okay, and those safety precautions will be adhered to and looked at, and of course they'll be reviewed and analyzed, and hopefully this will not ever happen again.
Yeah, absolutely. And just trying to figure out exactly the details here. We've got a crew on the scene, like I mentioned before, to learn more information about how this officer was hurt, who else might have been involved here, and hopefully that they end up okay, and that it's not a significant injury, but that's something that we're working to find out as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
I want to ask you also about the latest involving Victor Hill. What is your response to this development that he's now been denied bond, and your thoughts on this story overall, being a law enforcement expert yourself?
Well, one of the things that we're all sworn to do is uphold the laws and respect the public. and no matter what situation they may be in, incarcerated or a suspect that's being arrested for a crime. And unfortunately, in this situation, Mr. Hill and his employees upheld up the rights of everyone. And no matter who you are, the President of the United States or whomever, you're not above the law. And unfortunately, in this situation, there were some things in the violation of the civil rights of the detainees, and unfortunately, this situation got into court, and he was found guilty of those charges. And I hope and pray that this now will have more reflect on the custody of these detainees and making sure that they're treated fairly, and again, most importantly, that things are done the way that they're supposed to be in regards to the law, and people have rights, and no one is above the law, and unfortunately, in this situation, he has to deal with the consequences of his actions.
Yeah, and are you kind of, so I guess it sounds like this judge denying this bond, you feel like you would have made the same ruling if you were the judge.
Well, I think that one of the things about this is that the judge looked at the totality of the situation, and most importantly, by him being the sheriff and the head person in charge, that he is held accountable. And because of that, he's making an example of that no one is above the law, and you will be held accountable for your actions. And I agree with what the judge is saying, and I hope that there'll be some changes that take place.
And I know a lot of people agree with you. Another case that we've been following, like I mentioned off the top, is that there's this reward out for this young man, a teenager, wanted for murder. What do you have to say about this situation?
Well, unfortunately, these situations happen, and the U.S. Marshals are very able to deal with these situations in regards to tracking this person down. Of course, with the help of the citizens, that if they see this subject, that they will alert law enforcement as quickly as possible and hopefully get this situation rendered under control without anyone else getting hurt or injured. And if this person is actually in the Atlanta area, then he's sleeping somewhere, someone has seen him, and hopefully they will be able to get this information out as quickly as possible. But the U.S. Marshals are very good at finding people and tracking them down and hopefully get this situation under control without anyone else getting injured or hurt.
So if people see this man, they should not approach him, right?
Not at all. The best thing for them to do is get any type of vehicle description, where he's walking, what he's wearing, and report that to 911 as quickly as possible. That information will be disseminated to the U.S. Marshals, and they will definitely get into that area and hopefully apprehend him without too much trouble. Now,
because he is a murder suspect here, should we assume that he's armed and dangerous?
Absolutely. That's another thing to take in consideration, that anyone that may be involved in something similar to that type of violent crime, definitely you want to be aware that there's a possibility they may be armed and dangerous. And again, reiterating the fact of calling law enforcement, giving any type of description, any type of clothing that they're wearing, and report it as quickly as possible.
Any final thoughts on that story?
Well, most importantly, definitely you want to stay away from that individual, and I'm quite sure that someone knows where he is, and hopefully he'll have enough consciousness to turn himself in as well and bring into this situation where no one else can get hurt.
Sure, absolutely. In cases like this, because you've spent so many years as a law enforcement officer, feel free to tell me how long did you spend as a law enforcement officer?
Well, I spent 36 years with the D.C. Police Department, 10 years at the Police Academy as a sergeant in charge of physical skills and defensive tactics. And most of my career was spent with the SWAT team from 1984. I was a tactical operator for 6 years, got promoted to sergeant, and then I went back to the academy. After leaving the academy, I went back to the SWAT team as a team leader and a training coordinator for 12 years. And it helped start our active shooter program in D.C.
And so, with all your experience, what can you say about how important it is for the public to engage in cases like this? Because, there's this huge reward, and essentially you've got law enforcement asking the community for help in this case. How important is it that the community does their part?
Well, we all know that law enforcement can't do everything by themselves, and with the assistance of the public, and looking out for situations like this and helping out will greatly bring the situation under control a lot quicker. And the more that the public is involved in helping us, the more likelihood that this individual will be brought into custody without anybody else getting injured or any other due harm to the public as well. And you never know, this person may be in a situation where they want to run and it could potentially hurt somebody else. So any information that the public can do to help out would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, retired Senior Sergeant Mr. Charles Yarbaugh, for your insight and analysis. And, you know, we really appreciate you joining us here on Atlanta News First Plus.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.